What's up everyone, welcome back to Saint Seiya Awakening. I'm sorry for the delay in bringing you this review. It's been an insane week at work and I just haven't had a chance to record much. But we're back for another full character review. It's somebody that was just introduced to the game. Today we're going to look at BALRON LUNE. Now he was called BALRON here in the game, I think for trademark reasons, but I don't care. I'm going to call him BALRON. This guy is the newest addition to the Spectre roster, and he is a cosmic type attacker that can fulfill several functions in a game. Like many recent Saints, he has one mechanic that kind of makes him a little bit different than everybody else, and in his case that's called BUUURN. Now he's not the only unit that uses this debuff in the game, but he's one of the best at taking advantage of it. This BUUURN effect causes the enemy to lose HP automatically at the beginning of their turn. After you apply it, it lasts for 2 rounds, and each enemy unit can have up to 5 stacks. And because this damage is done automatically, it has the chance of killing an enemy unit before it even moves and has the chance to attack us. With LUNE's first skill, he can apply a little bit of direct damage to the enemy, but it also adds a stack of burn to its primary target and one more enemy unit that already moved. This is very important. It has to be a unit that already took a turn in that round. So with the first skill, we can apply a maximum of 2 stacks. It also refreshes the duration of all the stacks of burn on the enemy team, which means that in theory, we should be able to keep stacking, and those burns will never expire because as long as we're still attacking them, they're gonna get the duration refreshed. Now, like I mentioned, that burn is gonna do automatic damage and we can increase it by leveling up the first skill. It starts at only 60% per stack, but it goes all the way up to 110%, and because we can stack 5 of these on each unit, that's 550% cosmic damage that enemy is going to take before he even moves. It's one of the very few first skills in the game that's actually worth upgrading. The second skill is where things start to get a little bit crazy, and here we have to separate LUNE before he transforms and after he transforms. It's one of those units that has a little bit of a personality issue. He's not sure if he wants to be a support, if he wants to be an attacker, but it does make him flexible and good in many situations. Let's start off with LUNE in Judge form. When he's in this phase, he's gonna work as a buffer and debuffer. He actually does both. This second skill that costs 1 energy can be used either on an enemy unit or on an ally. If we use it on an enemy, then we're gonna remove whatever buffs that enemy has been granted. But this is really tricky. There's a lot of things that work and a lot of things that don't work, so we're gonna make a full list after we're done looking at all the skills. In either case, he removes the buffs and he also applies a stack of burn to the primary target and to a unit that already moved, just like the first skill. If the target of the skill is an ally, then it will remove hard control effects, and here we have a list of stun, restrict, nightmare, freeze, black ice, sleep, and petrification. There's a few more conditions. Again, we're gonna go over all of them after we're done looking at the skills. Besides removing these control effects, it will also make the ally immune to the Pope's dimensional space, the other dimension. It's really weird that it's really specific to just one state, but whatever, that's what it does. You can't be swallowed up into the other dimension. It will also grant that ally the ability to apply burn. So no matter what skills that ally uses, if he touches an enemy unit, they're gonna get burned. This is amazing to use with AoE attackers like Thanatos, who can actually AoE with no energy cost. He can't be controlled. He can apply these burns and start stacking them really quickly. The last function is that it increases both the critical effect and the Cosmo damage multipliers, so it's usable with any attackers. It doesn't matter. With skill ups, we can increase that bonus to a maximum of 15% more crit effect and 30% Cosmo damage multiplier. So it does a lot of things, and remember, this is before LUNE even transforms. When he transforms, this ability goes from reincarnation to fire whip. But before looking at this one, let's see how the heck we transform, which is with the third skill. When LUNE uses this one, which costs 0 energy, he will transform, or he will take off his clothes and come out in armor. He immediately gains an extra move. The second skill changes to the fire whip, and he also gets a shield based on his max HP. That shield starts at only 30%, but it can go all the way up to 70% of his max HP, almost doubling it. After the transformation, if any enemy units are in this reincarnation state, which I'm going to try to show you during the demonstration, it's basically like a pool of fire that appears under the enemy, then those enemies in reincarnation have a chance to receive additional burns. And now LUNE has transformed into an attacker that can actually take advantage of all those burns we've been applying. To look at the skill levels for Fire Whip, we actually can't do it here. If I click the icon here, nothing happens, but if you go to the codex, you can actually see the different levels. This is a really useful trick. It works for a lot of Saints. I think Hypnos is one of the primary ones, and here we can see that the Fire Whip will deal damage to the primary target, and it will also damage any other enemy units that have burn. So this is, in theory, it could be an AoE effect. If the entire enemy party has burns because we used an AoE attacker to distribute them, then LUNE could be hitting absolutely everybody at the same time, and it doesn't matter if they're hidden. And remember his mechanics about applying burn to units that already moved? This is very useful to deal with cannon. The skill has a base multiplier, but it also does additional damage based on how many burns we have. The maximum is 30%, and remember we can have 5 stacks, so that's 150% multiplier, plus let's say we skill it up all the way and we have the 200 base, that's 350% multiplier to everybody. Granted, if they have 5 burns. The fourth skill is a passive called Necronomicon, which I really like this name, and it's an ability that gives LUNE almost complete immunity. There are 3 exceptions exceptions to this that I have confirmed. They're going to be Exile, which is Cannon's triangle, Restriction, which is Shun's chain, and I believe Mino's control falls under Restriction as well because he is vulnerable to Minos. But the one that doesn't work, which is a little bit weird, is Devour. You remember that B rank armor that nobody uses but can actually control a lot of units that usually can't be controlled? Well, LUNE is in fact immune to it. The passive does have an additional effect, but it's not really something that comes too much into play. What it does is apply additional burns with a certain chance to enemy units that try to use control effects or enemy units that kill one of our allies. Those are his 4th skills. Now let's look at how you build him. And the truth is that if you're going to be using him strictly as support, then you actually don't need skill ups. All of his abilities are 100% proc rate. He will buff, he will debuff, no problem at all, but you do need 2 skills at level 2 for the 8 cents. So I chose to go with the first one and the second one to 2. That's only 2 tomes for a basic support LUNE. Now if you want to go with an attacker LUNE, that is a completely different story. You're going to get additional multipliers here from the first skill if you take it to level 4. Skill 2 you're going to want at level 5. It gets you a really nice crit effect and really nice Cosmo damage multiplier. But more importantly, the Fire Whip does a lot more damage. And the additional multiplier that we get for the stacks of burn is maxed at level 4. So I'm not sure it's exactly worth it to level up the first one. That's 4 more tomes for just 20% more multiplier. This is the one that's going to be adding most of the damage, and that one caps out at level 4. If you're going for an attacker, then having these Flames of Balrog at max level when you transform gives you almost effectively double your HP. It's 70%, it's not quite 100% boost, but it still makes him incredibly hard to get rid of. Lastly, there's the passive, which as we mentioned, you get the immunity on level 1. That's 100%. What increases are the chances of applying these burns with the control effect and the killing of allies, but that's really not that essential for an attacker. You're going to be stacking the burns with your regular attacks, with other ally units, AoE ally units that you gave the buff to, so really that one does not need skill ups, it can stay at 1. That brings the super attacker LUNE to a total of 4, 4, 5, 1. That's only 22 tomes, relatively cheap compared to the SS and EX units we've seen lately. Over on the 8 cents, like any PvP unit, we're gonna want to open everything eventually. I would personally start with things that make him tanky, so we can take advantage of him in that support role. I would start with Delta, which gives him HP and resistance to both types of damage. Then Beta with HP and status resistance, although the status resistance in him is a little bit wasted. Remember, he only has a couple of weaknesses, but I suppose it could help us resist the chain or Minos control. Then we have Alpha with Cosmo attack and speed, and lastly Gamma with Cosmo attack and damage reflect. Now on to his Cosmo, and again we have to differentiate between a LUNE strictly for support and a LUNE that we want to use for damage. I actually set mine up for support yesterday, and the damage he did with little skill ups, this support Cosmo surprised me quite a bit. If you're going for a super tanky build, then we have 3 options here in the red. We have Flower Ring, we have White Mist, and we also have Chalice. Flower Ring and Chalice gives you a little bit of speed, but always keep in mind with speed that you have to make sure he falls in the right spot in your team in the order. If you're going with attacker, then obviously Rosary and the new Dragon Chant are really good options. Over on Lunar, almost everything fits. The only things he doesn't need are status hit, and status resistance is a little bit wasted. Just focus on getting the substats for the LUNE build that you're going. If you're going tanky, then look for HP, defense. If you're going for attack, then look for Cosmo attack. Definitely speed, so you make sure he falls in the right place. And in the blue, we have again 2 options. Now, Nether is actually really good in his case because it helps us in tankiness and it helps us in damage as well. So for either one of the builds, it would work. If you find that he's too slow and you need him to move a little bit quicker in your team, then you can always go with Hummingbird with Cosmo attack, speed, and Cosmo damage. Moving on to the legendary, there's a couple of options that fit him quite nicely. If you're going for a support build, you have the ever-present Rising Dragon Teeth, that's going to save your life once. You also have Book of the Dead, which can keep you alive when your allies start dropping off. And remember, he does have a mechanic about applying burns when your allies die, so it could be useful. And lastly, there's Scarab, which gives you a big HP boost at the beginning. It also gives you Reflect, and it's one of the few Cosmos that can't be completely turned off by Thanatos. That's because this HP boost happens at the beginning of the battle and you keep it forever, even if the legendary Cosmo is turned off later. Now, there's an option that I've been meaning to test out for an attacker, and that would be Wind Elf. Because in theory, since he's going to be hitting a lot of enemy units, everybody that has burn, then these stacks of cosmic damage could really add up very quickly. We're going to try to do that in the demonstration today, and I'm hoping it works out. In subs, like we mentioned, if you want full support, you're going to be looking for HP and defense. If you want a balance, look for those 2, and also Cosmo attack and Cosmo damage. If you're going for an all-out attacker, then bring him some protection, even though his stats are really good. Bring him some protection, and then just focus on Cosmo attack, Cosmo damage, and enough speed so that he moves when you want him to. Alright, now let's look at his teams and let's start with the attacker role because it's a little bit easier. Remember that we can get our allies to spread those burns for us and then increase our damage. For that, any AoE attacker will work really well. Thanatos is one that can do it automatically for 0 energy. Pisces is not bad as well, and then from there on, any AoE attacker. Saga, Leo, whatever else you want to use. The Rebirth Hades kind of works. He does have an AoE attack when the Eclipse finishes, but that only happens once per battle, so you're not going to get that much out of it. A really specific combo that we have to mention is what's commonly known as the Fire Boys. That team used to consist of just Babel and the legendary Iki, the fiery one. This one right here that can do a massive amount of damage when there's burn on the enemy team, but in reality you don't even need Babel anymore because LUNE is going to be spreading so many burns that Iki can take full advantage from it and you don't need that third additional unit. So the combo now would be fiery Iki along with LUNE and just focus on spreading as much as possible. Then when LUNE transforms, he's going to apply damage to everybody with burn, and Iki is as well. So it's like a double AoE combo, and their skills only cost 1 energy each. It's really strong. And that's it for attackers, which we said was going to be quite simple. Now, for support, his skill only uses 1 energy. His function is to remove buffs from the enemy and grant buffs to your team, so he really fits in anywhere, like any buffer. How good he is in the role is going to depend more on the enemy team than yours. So here's a really good chance to go over all of the things that he can cleanse and the ones he can't. And these are only the ones that I've been able to test so far. Going back to his skill then, it specifies that it cleanses Stun, confirmed, Restrict with his Shun's Chain, and I think he might be the only unit in the game that can actually cleanse the control from the Shun's Chain. Hypno's Nightmare, but in this case we have to be specific. He will wake up an ally from the nightmare state, but he will not cleanse the nightmare seals. So when that ally unit moves again, they will fall back into the nightmare. What it does is wake them up so they can move outside of their turn, kind of like Shiryu's counters, but it cannot remove the seals. Then we have Freeze and Black Ice, so full counter for the Ice Boys. Sleep, and this includes Sorrento's Deep Sleep, it does remove it, and Petrification, which is not something that's seen too much in the game, but he cleanses it as well. Now, those are the things he can cleanse. Let's look at the ones he can't. First, he cannot cleanse debuffs. Remember that there's a difference. There are debuffs, like for example, attack break, defense break, slow. Those are all marked by a red icon. He cannot cleanse any of those. Control states are usually marked by a yellow icon, but there's a couple of these that he can't cleanse as well, and the most important one is Silence. It is a state that's used quite a bit, both with Nero Priest and with the regular Shaka. LUNE is immune to Silence, but he cannot remove it. He also cannot remove the Taunt from Misty or the Devil Punch from the Pope. That's his yellow confusion. Another type of control he can't remove is Minos. If Minos is controlling one of our allies, LUNE cannot remove it. And that's it for cleansing on our team. Now, remember, he also removes buffs from the enemy. And this one is even more limited because he can't remove automatic buffs. So for example, when Ophiuchus starts a battle, he grants his entire team damage reduction. That's an automatic effect and BALRON cannot cleanse it. The effects granted by the Will of the Stars cannot be removed either. So in reality, the only buffs that he can remove are the ones granted, for example, by Nachi. He gives an attack buff, we can take that off, but it's something that's used very little in the game. So as far as removing buffs, his uses are really super limited. One thing that surprised me that he can remove, which makes no sense, is the Dragon Seals. Remember, when Shiryu activates his protection, he can then place Dragon Seals on an ally, and if that ally is attacked, then he counters. Well, for some reason, LUNE can remove that seal. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's like they took all of the states, they put them in a bag, they shook it around, and then they just randomly pulled which ones were going to work and which ones were not. Anyway, a very interesting unit that sounded better as a support at the beginning, and now I'm seeing there's actually a lot of limitations. I thought he would be a straight up replacement for Saori, but there's a lot of effects that he cannot remove, and very importantly, Silence. So, his uses in the game are going to be primarily PvP. He is a very decent counter against Hypno's Nightmare as well. It's a shame he doesn't remove the seal, but at least he can temporarily wake the unit up. He's also an amazing counter for the Ice Boys, and in the future, I think he'll be the only way to stop Divine Yoga. Now we're going to go test him in Arena, but I'm going to make a little bit of a Cosmo change first. I think I'm going to go more for an attacker role this time, but I'm going to use a very similar strategy to yesterday's by giving the buff to Thanatos and have him spread all of the burn for me. Okay, this is the team that we're going to use, and today I've gone all out damage on LUNE. I changed this Cosmo. I went with Rosary because I had some speed Cosmo and I needed him to be a little bit faster than my Divine Shun. And I also gave him a couple more skill ups. We took skill 2 to level 4. Let's see how he behaves as a straight up damage dealer. We can also test if this actually stacks. Alright, most people are running the exact same team right now. I managed to find somebody without Divine Shiryu, which is such an annoying unit, but we do have to deal with this Ophiuchus and Junin. So let's see if we can get enough stacks to make this worth. Now, our team relies quite heavily on protection. We are going to want to keep alive our Thanatos and our LUNE. And in the first turn, what I need to do is grant my Thanatos... Oh my god. Okay, I guess we know who we're covering with Divine Shun. No use hiding anybody anymore. What we're going to do is mark. Obviously, we're going to mark his Divine Shun, and we have to work through a lot of HP, my friends, and healing and stuff. which is disgusting. But anyway, in this first turn, before I transform, what I'm gonna do is give the buff to Thanatos. That way, when his AoE attack triggers, he will automatically apply burn to the entire enemy line. I wonder what this guy activated. I don't know how his AI behaves in here in automatic. Probably the revive, because he hasn't countered. Okay, so I'm gonna give this guy this thing. And there's nothing to cleanse. Obviously, we can't cleanse Thanatos' eye, but what it does do is give me that ability to apply burn. So no cleanse for now, but it's not a big problem. Unfortunately, here in Arena, there's not a lot of people that use control. You rarely see, maybe every now and then you see a Hypnos, but that's really about it. So as a cleanser, as a support unit, he's definitely a lot better in Galactic Duel when you face certain teams. Here we're gonna use him straight up support, straight up attacker, and it's going to be a hard match. It's going to be a hard match because when we drop this Pisces low, he's going to start doing a ton of damage. Here I can start getting my rage meter up. I'm going to go on this June, which already moved. I eat the first attack. I also get a counter from this guy. He activated the counter, but fortunately, I was shielded by this thing. Alright, now they seem to be focusing a lot on my Thanatos, so I'm going to give him some light and maybe we can whatchamacallit, we can create some energy. Now, what do I want to do here? Do I want to transform right now? Or maybe give somebody else the buff? No, I think I'm going to transform, but it's kind of a waste. I don't need the energy. I'm going to transform, okay? I'm going to rely on Thanatos to apply all of those burns. And I'm going to start applying them as well. Now, remember, I'm going to apply one to my primary target and one to somebody that already moved. So it's probably going to be one of these 3 units here. I'm going to hit June and see if it goes on a Fucus. Let me see. It went on. Nani? Oh, it applied 2 to June. Did you see that? So it applied because I hit her, and it applied because she had already moved. And this June is already low, and I have a 3rd turn. Because remember, when you transform, you get an additional turn. So if you give Hashun, you give the double turn to him, you actually get 3. And this girl is in some serious danger. She has 4 stacks of burn. I'm going to go on this Ophiuchus now, start stacking on him. June is really low. My Thanatos is on the verge of death, but fortunately, he doesn't have a Divine Athena. So he can't execute me. There's a BAM from my Thanatos. We recover a little bit with the lifesteal. And I'm going to place this other thing. They seem to be attacking my Thanatos a lot. Okay, so that was quite a bit of damage. June revives. June already came back from the dead with the Ophiuchus revive, so we burnt that, but now she's back to full health. We gotta kill her over again, and here comes the problem. Here comes the problem, which is this Pisces low on HP. It would have been ideal to get rid of this June, but we weren't able to feel. Oh my god, he has 2 turns. My Athena decides to stay. What a hero. What a hero. And now I'm getting scared, because this Pisces is gonna do horrible things to me. The enemy Thanatos attacks me. My Lune is really low. Don't die, bro. And if I do this, oh shoot. If I do this, this guy is gonna heal. I kind of wanted to execute him with Athena, but I think he's gonna heal, bros. Oh crap. Can he die? Aye! Yes, because we get the AoE. Nice. Okay, so Thanatos is doing a lot of work here, but that's kind of what Thanatos does. And it is a combination that you're going to want to use with Lune. Because look at this. Even though we've never attacked him directly, and he doesn't move at the beginning of the round, this Pisces already has 2 stacks of burn. And I can execute someone here with Athena. I believe I am going to go for June. I'm going to go for June, get rid of the Vine, and now I am going to try to finish this guy who only has 2 stacks, but now we have some scale ups. We also have attacker Cosmo. Can we finish him? Yes, we can! Take that whip to the face! Oh, that's very satisfying. That is actually very satisfying. And what I'm going to do is, I am going to... that Thanatos moves before my Lune. I'm going to protect my Lune. He's the star of the show. That was a good whip, bro. That was a really good whip. We keep covering our poor Thanatos. We can actually heal up with Shiryu, because I think we're gonna eat another hit from the enemy Thanatos in this round. And I'm gonna try to finish everything with Lune in this round. Now, unfortunately, Ophiuchus did lose all of the stacks of burn with his revive, or maybe we never applied any. I'm not sure. I wasn't keeping track exactly. Oh, here comes the Thanatos AoE. Don't die, Lune! No, you asshole bastard! Oh, Thanatos is such an asshole. Oh, he had the counter up. It was a good strategy, but now this Ophiuchus is dead. Take revenge for your fallen. No, he's not your soldier. He's actually a Spectre. But we let Shun finish it off. He should have a lot of damage from the eye. Yes, 55k. GG. So that was a good game. We saw quite a bit of damage from LUNE there. We were able to observe his mechanic of granting an ally the ability to apply burn. It's an interesting combination with Hashun. In that second turn, you can actually get a total of 3 turns, so you can transform and attack twice. Start stacking those burns really quickly. Thanatos kind of ends up stealing the show, but that's kind of what he does, and he is a combination that you're going to be using, so it's okay to see them together. Needless to say, I like LUNE quite a bit now, and it's actually strange because first I liked him as a support, then I thought, oh, okay, he's actually not that good, and then I tried him with damage, and I actually had a lot of fun, and he can do a really good job. See for yourself then if he fits into one of your teams. If you already have the Fire Boys built, then definitely this guy is for you. I'm gonna keep using him in PvP, try to squeeze a lot more fun out of him, but that's it for today. If you haven't already, please remember, hit like, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye!